flourish and succeed. It should be a place that helps an enterprise to grow, where an enterprise can realize its unlimited potential with talented human resources, where the success of a business is guaranteed. It is the Chungbuk Free Economic Zone.
Coming up on Arirang News. South Korea's launch of its homegrown rocket, Nuri, originally planned for this evening, has been delayed due to technical issues. But the next attempt could be as early as tomorrow. The South Korean team of experts continue their on-site mission to check the safety of Japan's planned Fukushima wastewater release, saying they're focusing on scientific standards. This while in Korea, Seoul's foreign minister dismisses concerns over the inspection team, noting it's not Japan's sidekick. South Korea records yet another new fertility rate low, with the number of babies born in the first 3 months of this year recording an all-time low for the first quarter. Good evening. It's 9 p.m. here in Seoul. Thank you for joining us on Arirang News. The much-anticipated third launch of South Korea's homegrown space rocket, the Nuri, has been delayed over technical issues detected in the pre-launch preparations. Inspections and the repairing process will be taking place overnight, and the next attempt could come as early as tomorrow. Our Lee Kyung-eun leads us off.
Roughly 4 hours ahead of its planned liftoff of 6:24 p.m. Wednesday, Nuri's launch was given the initial go-ahead. The weather conditions as well as the erection process and other preparations were all complete. But the plan was called off following pre-launch operational checkups as there was a problem with the helium valve. The valve is key to releasing pressure generated while helium is injected into Nuri, which cools the liquefied oxidizer. The problem was not with the valve itself, but with the controlling system due to a communication glitch between two computers, one in charge of the entire launching process, the other in charge of the launching pad facility.
We've assessed that the problem is not with the rocket itself, so Nuri will remain erect, while the software team among the Korea researchers will analyze the problem and rectify it within today.
That makes this delay different from the ones during the second launch that were caused by strong winds and a glitch in the oxidizer sensor tank. Because that time Nuri was transported back to the assembly center because the tank needed to be replaced. Now, while standing upright, Nuri awaits the next OK for his third blast-off. The next attempt could come as early as Thursday, and if so, it'll be the same time as Wednesday's planned liftoff time of 6:24 p.m. If not, the next possible date will be at some point before May 31st. A lot of factors will be considered before making the decision.
Factors affecting the next attempt date are how long the satellites can be sustained on board Nuri. We also have to keep injecting air to protect them, which cannot go on for days. There's also the weather and possible collisions with space objects, among the other things that have to be taken into consideration.
The announcement will decide when Nuri will embark on its first ever proper mission to carry 8 working satellites into orbit. Lee Kyung-eun, Arirang News, Goheung.
The much-anticipated third liftoff of Nuri has been delayed, but the rocket still brings excitement to the people in the southern coastal county of Goheung in Jeollanam-do province. Our Shin Se-byuk met some of them.
Goheung County in Jeollanam-do province. The southernmost coastal town is where the journey to space begins for South Korea's homegrown rocket, the Nuri. This county, once a small town known for its serene beaches and landscapes, has now transformed into a hub of innovation and technological marvels. The excitement and expectations are particularly high in Goheung, whose people are up-close witnesses to the country's efforts to explore a new field. To them, the Nuri is more than scientific technology. To them, it's aspirations and hopes.
As a Goheung County resident, I hope for a successful third launch of the Nuri. Also, I can see a growing number of visitors coming to Goheung County, and it just makes our town more vibrant.
I watched the first and the second liftoffs. I want to see the third one too, and the next, and the next. I'm so excited.
I love watching the night sky. Now the Nuri's successful launch would mean I get to see even more amazing things in the sky.
Their excitement will only grow with future Nuri launches and with Goheung set to take center stage for the advancement of the nation's space industry.
The semiconductor industry has been the driving force behind our nation thus far, but looking ahead, we anticipate that the space industry will generate an enormous value of billions and trillions of won. Goheung is the hub of South Korea's aerospace endeavors. The town that we're living in is playing a pivotal role in spearheading the nation's space industry. I have to tell you that we are very proud of it.
Even though the much-anticipated third launch of the Nuri has been delayed, the rocket has surely brought the small coastal village hope and anticipation. 신새벽, 아리랑 뉴스, 고흥.
South Korea's team of 21 experts sent to Japan continues inspecting the crippled Fukushima nuclear power plant to assess whether the contaminated water is safe enough to be released into the Pacific Ocean. Wrapping up their second day of inspections, the South Korean experts said they focused on the emergency valve that shuts down the discharge. Kim Do-yeon with more.
South Korea's inspection team sent to Japan is on its second day of on-site inspections of the Fukushima power plant. They visited the chemical lab that analyzes nuclides, the plant's tritium dilution system, and the facility responsible for actually releasing the treated water. After their observation addressing the media, the chairman of the inspection team, Yoo Go-ki, said they had focused on whether the shutoff valve was in place, adding that the valves are there to shut off the system if there is a problem with the contaminated water after going through the ELPS process, but before being diluted. The focus of the inspection was on where the emergency valve is and whether it's fully functional. But still, the chairman said additional inspections have to be done for them to come to a conclusion.
It's still a bit too early for a conclusion. We did check the location of the valve with our own eyes, but we still have to check how the valve works and its capacity.
He also said other items included the tools to figure out the nuclear concentration level for each radioactive material as well as the dilution system's capacities. Wednesday's inspection lasted 30 minutes less than Tuesday's, and according to the chairman, everything on the day's agenda went according to plan. Separately, in a parliamentary session on Wednesday, Seoul's Foreign Minister Park Jin dismissed concerns that South Korea is only giving Japan reasons for the discharge of contaminated water by sending its own team of experts to the power plant.
The inspection team is not Japan's sidekick. Of course, the IAEA is conducting inspections, but our team of experts is also there to closely examine the facilities for themselves and let the public know what they found.
Park also reaffirmed that the government will not lift its ban on seafood imports from Fukushima unless public concerns are eased. On Thursday, the last day of their mission, the 21-member inspection team will hold an in-depth discussion with relevant Japanese officials based on the information gathered from the on-site inspections before returning back to Seoul the following day. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
In other news, Seoul and Washington together have issued more sanctions against Pyongyang's illegal cyber workforce that allegedly help fund North Korea's weapons programs. More IT-related individuals and institutions have been slapped with sanctions. Our Choi Min-jung reports.
South Korea and the U.S. continue to take joint action against North Korea's illicit cyber activities, which help to fund the regime's nuclear and missile programs. Seoul on Tuesday slapped sanctions on 7 individuals and 3 institutions. This is the 7th round of sanctions put in place against Pyongyang since the beginning of the Yoon administration. Since October last year, South Korea has targeted 43 individuals and 44 institutions. Those on the list are guilty of either contributing to financing the regime's nuclear and missile development, training IT personnel, or evading sanctions. The individuals are also accused of violating the human rights of their IT personnel. Of those on the list of fresh targets, Seoul and Washington simultaneously imposed sanctions on Jinyoung IT Cooperation Company and its general manager, Kim Sang-man. The target institution is an IT company under the North's Ministry of Defense and is guilty of dispatching IT personnel to Russia, China, and Laos. Kim Sang-man was responsible for illegal foreign currency earnings by being in charge of overseas IT branches. The joint sanctions in the cyber sector come about a month after the 2 countries slapped sanctions on the same target, Shim Hyun-sup, for the very first time. Seoul's foreign ministry said South Korea and the U.S. have continuously sought ways to enhance the effectiveness of independent sanctions by designating the same target. Diplomatic authorities of Seoul and Washington also jointly hosted a symposium in San Francisco on Tuesday to discuss measures to block Pyongyang's illicit IT activities. The forum is the second of its kind after the 2 countries co-hosted an event last November to tackle crypto theft by North Korea. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
South Korea's top nuclear envoy Lee Jun-il met U.S. Deputy Special Representative for North Korea Jung Pak to discuss ways to counter North Korea's military threats. The meeting took place in San Francisco on Tuesday, and they also focused on North Korea's plan to launch a military spy satellite. Both sides agreed to cooperate more closely and take strong action against any satellite launch. North Korea's news agency said last week that its first spy missile is ready to be launched. Earlier today, the government and the ruling party announced their new plan to create a special task force aimed at tackling what they called unlawful protests and rallies, while the opposition called the move unconstitutional. Our Lee Si-ho reports.
At the National Assembly on Wednesday, the government and ruling party agreed to create a task force to tackle demonstrations that disrupt the daily lives of the broader public. This is according to the leader of the People Power Party, Yoon Jae-ok, after a meeting between the party and government officials. The task force will be run by the Prime Minister's office and will seek to maintain public order and protect people's, quote, rights and interests. It's pushing for a revision to the current Assembly and Demonstrations Act to restrict overnight rallies. It will also push for the restriction of rallies in urban areas during rush hour. Wednesday's meeting comes after what the PPP called an unlawful protest by the Korean Construction Workers Union under the umbrella of the Korean Confederation of Trade Unions. The union held a 2-day rally in Seoul in mid-May, calling for the penalization of those responsible for the suppression of the labor union and the aggressive investigation of its late executive Yang Hwe-dong. Yang died after setting fire to himself in protest against the investigation that looked into whether he unlawfully threatened to interfere with construction projects. The union, in response, held an overnight rally where its noise level exceeded the permitted standard. It also took up 5 of the 8 lanes in Sejongdaero Road in central Seoul.
We agreed that during the registration process, we have no choice but to restrict rallies that occupy central urban roads during rush hour.
The PPP said it's considering restricting rallies by organizations with a history of unlawful activities and those that are likely to disturb the public order. The main opposition Democratic Party responded to this move, saying that it's, quote, an idea that clearly goes against the spirit of the Constitution. Its leader Lee Jae-myung said the move takes away the freedom of assembly. Lee also rhetorically asked what harm the laws on rallies and protests have done to South Korea's politics and economy. With the opposition holding a majority in parliament against the idea, it's unclear whether the ruling bloc will be able to push through the revision to the Assembly and Demonstrations Act. 이시후, Arirang News.
South Korea records yet another new fertility rate low, with the number of babies born in the first 3 months of this year recording an all-time low for the first quarter. Also, the population drop continues, with the number of deaths in March surpassing that of births. Our Lee Soo-jin tells us more.
South Korea's shrinking population continues to be a real challenge for the nation to overcome. Data from Statistics Korea on Wednesday shows that the number of births in March came to 21,138, down 8.1% from the previous year. That's the lowest figure on record for the month of March. According to an official from the agency, this reflects the growing tendency for married couples choosing to have fewer or no children. The nation also saw its total fertility rate in the first quarter fall 0.06 on year to 0.81, the lowest on record. Meanwhile, the number of deaths dropped 35.2% from the previous year to around 28,000. The agency said that the sharp on-year decline was partly due to the large number of deaths last year amid the COVID-19 pandemic. This brought the natural decline in population to some 7,000 in March, maintaining similar levels to the previous month. South Korea has now seen a monthly drop for 41 consecutive months. The number of marriages, however, rose nearly 20% to more than 18,000, largely attributed to the pent-up demand created by the pandemic, making for a busy wedding season. There was also an on-year rise in divorces. In March, there were some 8,000, up nearly 5% compared to the previous year. Meanwhile, according to data released by the agency on the same day, the nation saw its lowest population mobility in 30 years for the month of April. The number of people relocating last month fell 5.6% on year to 455,000. The agency says this was driven by the aging population, as older people tend to migrate less. Lee Soo-jin, Arirang News.
The South Korean government and large corporations here have requested a review of specific terms within the U.S. Chips and Science Act to the U.S. Commerce Department. Our Moon Hae-ryun has more on the request itself as well as its implications.
The South Korean government has teamed up with several companies and organizations to submit a request to the U.S. Department of Commerce to redefine the terminology in the Chips and Science Act. According to a public notice announced by the U.S. Department of Commerce on Tuesday local time, Seoul raised issues with several of the Act's terms and conditions due to it placing an unreasonable burden on companies investing in the U.S. The most pressing issue outlined was the guardrail provisions limiting expansion of production in foreign countries of concern, including China. While the Act provides funding to semiconductor firms, one of the terms for firms looking for funding states that the expansion of advanced chip manufacturing in those countries should be limited to 5% for 10 years. The South Korean government, along with companies such as Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix, has requested for this to be raised to 10%, double the current limit, as well as redefining what is meant by advanced. Another request was the clarification on the scope of restricted activities under the technology clawback term of the Act. Currently, engaging in joint research and technology licensing with foreign entities of concern means that companies will have to give up whatever funding they receive. The South Korean government has requested that companies currently engaged in joint research and technology licensing contracts prior to receiving funds should be allowed to continue those activities. Seoul has also asked for redefinition of the term foreign entities of concern, as the umbrella term is too vague and broad, and restrictions should only apply to certain companies that have been placed on the export restrictions list. In addition, a demand for the Department of Commerce to sign a non-disclosure agreement was requested due to worries that trade secrets and sensitive information could be leaked during the process to judge eligibility for funding. The Department of Commerce is expected to review these requests and announce any amendments within the year. 문혜련, Arirang News.
Daewoo Shipbuilding and Marine Engineering was recently bought out by Hanwha and renamed Hanwha Ocean. Following the rebrand, watchers say South Korea is now better placed to strengthen its shipbuilding industry. Our Lee Dae-yeon explains why.
South Korea is seeking healthy competition in its shipbuilding industry. Hanwha, the new owner of Daewoo Shipbuilding and Marine Engineering, rebranded the company on Tuesday as Hanwha Ocean. With the new change, the so-called Big Three of the shipbuilding industry, HD Korea Shipbuilding and Offshore Engineering, Samsung Heavy Industries, and Hanwha Ocean are forecasted to maintain their market dominance. But Daewoo Shipbuilding and Marine Engineering have been criticized for selling their products at low prices just for short-term sales, undercutting its domestic competitors. Now, with new leadership on board, it will likely help set more appropriate prices for high-quality and advanced technology LNG carriers. And so shipbuilding industry insiders welcome the rebrand and new leadership, as this will help tame cutthroat competition. This will be a huge benefit to the industry as a whole, with China chasing Korea as a new player in the market. Experts say the new healthy competition may resolve the recent issue of talent outflow sparked by the company's reconstruction. Hanwha Ocean plans to hire new talent in June and says it will offer highly competitive benefits packages for its workers. HD Korea Shipbuilding and Offshore Engineering will also engage in a large-scale recruitment drive this year. Experts say that government support is needed for small and mid-sized shipbuilders too, as this may trigger development in other industries.
The more small and mid-sized shipbuilders are supported, the more the ship equipment industry can prosper. Financial support is focused on the big three companies. That's why small and mid-sized shipbuilders need more of this support for it to be able to improve.
Meanwhile, some experts predict the big three may each develop specialized sector of their own in the long term. Hanwha Ocean said it will transform its firm into a marine energy specialized business, managing energy like LNG and hydrogen while also building ships. Lee Dae-yeon, Arirang News.
Most parts of the country will be under wide temperature gaps. For Seoul, mornings will start off mild at 15, but highs will jump to 27 degrees. Other regions such as Daegwallyeong and Gangwon-do province will see a bigger difference of more than 10 degrees. It's much easier to catch a cold during this time of the year, so please be extra careful. Under warm daytime highs, UV rays will be intense nationwide. The entire nation will see UV ray index in the very high range. The peak hours for sun exposure are in between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m., so avoiding outdoor activities during these hours would be recommended. Air quality will be decent across the nation tomorrow. Morning temperatures in Seoul will be starting off at 15 degrees. Daytime highs in Seoul will jump to 27, Gwangju 26, Busan will be relatively breezier at 23 degrees. On Friday and Sunday, central parts of the country, including Seoul, will see showers. That's all for now, and here are the weather conditions around the world.
That is all for this Wednesday night newscast. Thank you for watching. We'll be back with the most up-to-date news tomorrow. Have a good night.
In what what sort of environments do new enterprises typically flourish and succeed? It should be a place that helps an enterprise to grow, where an enterprise can realize its unlimited potential with talented human resources, where the success of a business is guaranteed. It is the Chungbuk Free Economic Zone.